So it started off with a question, not an accusation, but a question. Was I, perhaps, perchance, a gear snob? And of course, my first response is, what? A snob? Of course not. I would never deign to be such a thing. And then I started thinking about it. If you look at my past history, I've always been such a thing. So let's take a look. Am I a gear snob?
The Wednesday Night Info Show.
You're such a snob. I mean, we know I started off with a bias. After all, I am a Strat player. I am only a Strat player. I love my Strats, man. I love fat Strats with the humbucking pickup back here. But these two, man, the mid position, the neck position, these single coil, gotta have those. That's me. That's who I am. I'm a Strat guy. More than that, I'm a hardtail Strat guy. So when it came time to switch to minis, since I had blocked off all my tremolos, it was pretty easy for me to just go ahead and stick with these non-string throughs, the hardtails. That's what I do anyway, man. Single tone, single volume. That makes life easier. Still got the 5-position switch. Still got that out of phase first and second. This is all I need in a mini, baby. It's my Strat. Because I am a hardtail Strat kind of guy. All I need. All I need. Yeah. And that will hopefully keep me away from copyrights. Then a funny thing happened on my way to my purity. And that is I ran across a recommendation to check out the SX brand, in particular the RST. This little vintage thing here still has the single, but it has the Strat set up as far as the tone knobs for the mid and the neck pickup. Still has the 5-position switch, but also comes with the wiggle stick. It's got the tremolo bar. That way I can get back into that form of music that I don't ever play, because I'm a purist. I'm a hardtail guy. But, okay, maybe it's time to let that hardtail thing go. After all, this is still a really nice looking Strat. This candy apple red paint. It's got everything you need, baby. It's a Strat. I'm a Strat player. Woohoo! That's all I need. I'm a Strat player. I'm a Strat player. Except when I play this little power player Gibson Les Paul Dilly. Yeah, sure, it's got a bolt-on neck, and it's not thick like the Les Pauls, and it does not have an arched top. But it's still more of a Les Paul than any Strat player would be caught playing. It still has the thinner neck, and I had to give up my bias towards the unfinished neck, that satin feel. And I found out these necks are surprisingly easy to play. It's a whole lot of fun, actually. Decent guitar, great sound. I guess I'm going to have to rethink this bias that I had towards Strats, this purity. I guess maybe Strats and Les Pauls are okay. Not going to add anything to that, though. I mean, come on, let's not get crazy. It's not like they make a mini Telecaster version. Well, thank you, CNZ Audio. Because unlike the full-size tellies that I never really liked because they didn't have the body contour, turns out making this body that much smaller makes it much more comfortable to play. Maple neck, thank you very much. 22-inch scale, 22 fret, easy to play. Basically the same thing as playing a regular Telecaster from the 3rd fret up. Got that ashtray-capable bridge, got that twang, got that single coil. It's all the telly a man could want. So I'm now a Strat player and a Les Paul player, and I suppose I'll also be a telly player because I guess but I'm a purist. Those are the traditional guitars. That's what I'm going to play. I'm not going to change anything unless, of course, you figure out a way for me to get into a mini Doheny. Now, some would call this a mini Jazzmaster. Sorry, these P90s put it straight into that G and Hell mini Doheny category. 3-position switch, and yeah, I reoriented the switch because I do have a bias towards the horizontal switch. But also tremolo bar, single volume, single tone. Yeah, I guess I'm an offset guy too, but that's it. You know, that's it. Strat player, Les Paul player. Also maybe play a Telecaster from time to time. But that's it. I'm a guitar player, right? I'm not going to play a guitar that's not a Strat or a Tele or a Les Paul or an offset, unless of course I need a good bass sound. At which point I'm going to have to play a bass guitar too. So yeah. A bias thing didn't really work out, but at least I only play electrics. I'm not moving all those guitars around. Yeah, I had to give that up too. All right, let's talk about bias. The most obvious, the one that probably stands out to most people that have watched more than a few episodes, is that I have a bias against a particular type of pickup that I notoriously rip out of guitars and replace with other pickups. See the trend? Oh. These are all pickups that I've removed from some of these guitars over the past 18 months. And the reason that I have a bias against it is because they are higher in mid-range and sometimes bass. They don't have the high treble sound that I like. And my argument was I can always take treble out. All I have to do is dial back the tone knob, but I can't add that sound in if it's not present in these pickups. So these are evil and need to be avoided as far as my personal tastes are concerned. But there is a problem with that. This guitar, Punkin, Seymour Duncan Super Distortion, or Duncan Distortion, excuse me. The problem with all of those pickups that I held up, they aren't this one. And the problem with this one is this is the one that was in my guitar when I first modded it in 1986. So from 1986 until roughly 4 years ago, this was the sound of a humbucking pickup that I expected. And all of those pickups are not this one. And so Epiphone power players, Mitchell guitars, even this TD100 had the humbucking pickup ripped out of it. And I've always actually been kind of disappointed in the humbucking pickup that's in my American Standard Strat. And it's all because they aren't this one. So, bias, yeah. Have I overcome that bias? I doubt it very seriously. But now that I at least know what it is, I can say it's not humbucking pickups. It's a particular type of humbucking pickup. And actually, if I could get those Duncan distortions in different guitars, I'd probably really enjoy that pickup. So, 18 months to realize my bias against that pickup. But wait, there's more. Single coil pickups. Ceramic. 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 Oh, look. 2 more humbucking. You can't get a good sound out of a ceramic pickup. You know, it's just not possible. In order to have really good sound, you've got to at least go with a good set of Alnico 5s, if not Alnico 2s or Alnico 3s. You just really have to change those pickups. You can't leave those by themselves. There's just no way you can get a good tone with a ceramic pickup. Oops. Vox. Mark V Mini, Vox Mark III Mini, Both come standard with ceramic pickups. I could not replace them because I couldn't find any that were shaped in this particularly odd form. And guess what? I've been able to get some sweet sounds out of these guitars, ranging from shredding in the car, or what I call shredding in the car, to some nice bluesy tones, to some really nice mixes of chord changes and progressions, some clean tones. All of those pickups that I've changed out because I didn't like the tone, as it turns out, maybe it wasn't those pickups after all. Oops. Another bias, single mini humbucking pickup. The Vox SDC1. The biggest problem that I had with that guitar, single mini humbucking pickup. Volume knob, tone knob, not enough variety in tone. It's just not good enough. I need more. I need to have, well, crap. I know what you're thinking. The Black Star Carry-On got a nice push-pull to go single coil. Here's the fun part. Never use the single coil. Every time I've used this to record, every time I've played to use it as far as practice goes, as far as figuring out songs, office guitar, the whole bit, always use the mini humbucking by itself, never the single coil. The only variety of the tones that I get are from the tone knob, the volume knob, and the processing. So after 18 months with minis and having these different pickup biases, what can I tell you? I have had a lot of fun modding guitars. And I have a lot of different guitars that have been modded. But as far as having to have a particular type of pickup in a particular position to get a particular type of tone, all of that is true. But you can also get a variety of tone from a variety of pickups and a variety of position. As someone so eloquently pointed out to me, that perhaps it's not all about finding your tone, but finding the tone that suits the song. Turns out, it wasn't the guitar's problem at all. It was the player. Well, at least I've got my strings worked out. I mean, after all, I've been playing the same strings since the 80s. I got my nines, my Ernie Ball Super Slinkies. That's all a man can need right here. Nines. Nines on every guitar. Absolutely perfect. Except, of course, that I noticed that I couldn't play my full-size guitars anymore, full scale, so I had to switch to eights to them. But that's it. You know, I've got my nines and I've got my eights, and that's all I need. I'm going to put my nines and my eights on everything. That's it. And unless, of course, I go down closer to a 20-inch scale, like a 20, maybe 22-inch scale, and then I'm going to put 10s. So I've got my 8s, my 9s, and my 10s, and that's it. That's all I'm ever going to use. Unless, of course, I want to do a standard E to E tuning with some of the guitars that have like an 18-inch scale or even shorter, at which point I got to go with 12s. So I exclusively use 8s and 9s and 10s and 12s. I'm not going to use anything else. That's it. These four exclusively. Ernie Ball, nothing else. At least I've got that choice made. At least there I know that I'm a purist. Until they, of course, put the G&L or GHS boomers on sale. So, yeah, turns out my bias is toward cheapness. Well, you know, even though the strings may not affect the tone that much, I've got all these different guitars in the room. I mean, at least I can get a ton of different tones out of them, right? Right? Well, yeah. Except for the fact that I started using this. This is the Positive Grid Spark app. It's a digital modeling amplifier simulator, and it's fantastic, man. You can check your different overdrives and compressors. You can throw in a noise gate, get digital chorus, some reverb, EQ, even auto wahs are on here, I'm sure. It's got all kinds of stuff, and it's got thousands of pre-programmed sounds, and all you have to do is basically call up the sounds you want in its menu, and then you just punch, okay, do I want Blackfoot Train? Do I want Brad Paisley style? Do I want country? Do I want Joan? Because I love rock and roll. Do I want old country radio? You know, what do I want? What do I want? I got all these tones at my fingertips, and all I have to do is press the button. And when I press the button and it comes up, almost every guitar in this room sounds vaguely similar. Maybe not across style. Maybe the ones with the P90s don't sound like the single coils, or the humbuckings don't sound like the mini humbuckers, but all of a sudden, most of the humbucking guitars sound vaguely similar. The single coils, the Alnico 2, Alnico 3, Alnico 5, and ceramics are really tough to discern the difference between them unless you A and B them. Sure, it sounds different in the room. You can feel it a little differently, but as it comes out of the amplifier onto the digital signal that's recorded, it's vaguely the same. Unfortunately, I am not a purist when it comes to using that digital signal. And so I actually found out a little more from someone wiser than I, who suggested if you really want to change up the tone, you put pedals in front of that digital modeling amp, and that'll put a little more heat into the amp, and it makes the tones different. Suddenly you could tell the difference between an Alnico 2, a 3, and a 5. Suddenly you could tell the difference between a humbucking pickup and a mini humbucker. Suddenly you could tell a real difference between those Filtertrons and the mini humbucker, or the P94s. Everything kind of stood out on its own. But, you know, I used to work in a guitar shop. I know what's what. I know the brand that you want to go with. And so the tone box of choice for me was the Blues Driver, the BD2. Don't get me wrong, still got my metal zone over there. I've got all kinds of distortion pedals and things made by the same metal box making company that is the boss of pedals, as so you would say. And yeah, this one comes free with the dog hair mod. But this was the tone box that I was using. So even though you could tell the difference between the pickup styles and things, there was still a sameness in it. And I admit, I was a snob when it came to this particular brand. But then I decided I wanted to branch out. Sure, I could get the tone with this. I could definitely get the tone with this and the digital processor. But I wanted something that was a little in between. Something that would just kind of bump the signal up a little bit. Not quite imperceptible, but subtle. And that's where the Donner Dumble came in. This little pedal is surprisingly useful, just to give it a little bit of tone, particularly if you're using a looper and you forget to decrease the volume on your looper so that it's as loud as your original signal. You kick this thing on and suddenly your soloing stands out from the loop. Matter of fact, almost everything you can hear that's bluesy on this channel that was run through the looper for the past month and a half to 2 months was run through this pedal, and the lead is a simple push of this button. As you can see, most of the dials are close to the center. It's not really a huge difference, but you can definitely tell the difference before the amp, and you can tell the difference afterward. Now, I also needed to be able to go between clean tones and a real thick chunk. So instead of having to reach up and push a button on the pad, I wanted something again on the floor that could do that. And so I went with a Plexion from A Music. And this was one of those Amazon pedals, again free with the dog hair mod, that I've actually found to be really, really useful. It simulates a British amplifier that's well known, that has since branched out to sell everything from key holders to Bluetooth speakers. It shares a name with the university that I attended, Go Thundering Herd. You may have figured out what that is by now. But I actually found this to be quite useful as well, especially in front of that digital modeler. I don't know why it makes the difference in the pickups stand out more than it does by changing it inside the modeler. I'm sure there's a scientific explanation for it. I don't know why it works. I just know that it do. And so that's what I do. So the question is, do I have a bias? And more importantly, do I have a bias that I'm willing to admit, and a bias that I'm willing to admit and yet not seek recovery from? Yes, I have a bias. I have a bias towards short scale guitars. And by short scale, I mean under 23.7 inches. Now, I'm very specific with that number because my 24-inch Squier Paranormal is gone. My Carbonetta is gone. My G&L Doheny, gone. My G&L ASAT, gone. My full-scale Alvarez bass, gone. Everything that I've had that's 24 inches and above is gone. And the reason is my hands. I still can't play more than 5 to 10 minutes with those things. I have to have the short scale guitar in order to keep playing. So yes, I'm very biased towards the short scale guitars. So much so that when I sold a short scale not long ago, the gentleman that came to pick it up, after having read an advertisement that said this is a short scale guitar and the name in it specifically stating that it is a tiny guitar, a mini guitar, he looked at it and he said, "This is a kid's guitar." And I found myself wanting to snap at him, which is uncalled for and very rude. I thought of 3 incredibly rude things to say right off the top of my head, and I won't share those because I want to add to, not take away from. He still bought the guitar. He was just trying to negotiate the price down, in my opinion. At least that's what I tell myself based on my bias. But yeah, even that 23.7-inch scale Licks Pro Telly back there, that goes unplayed. And it's not because it has ceramic pickups in it. It's not because I've taken the brass saddles back off of it. It's not because I don't like the guitar. It's because I'd rather play the 22-inch scale CNZ audio or even the mini telly. Yeah, I have a bias towards the mini guitars. I'm the founder and administrator of the Miniverse that is the Miniguitarsociety. But I really appreciate the feedback that I got, and the person that didn't call me a gear snob, but questioned whether or not I might be one. And I thank them for that for a couple of reasons. One is because it's always good to have feedback, especially when it leads you to check yourself. And 2, because it provides content. And that's what this is all about. Content for me is conversation. That's what it's supposed to start. So if it hadn't been for that person asking that question, not only would I not have this episode, but I also wouldn't have gone through it. And if you've watched it this far, you've benefited from that person respectfully asking a question, which is what a society is about. We're not a club. We're not, anything that's really exclusive. We're not even an organization. I'm not even organized. It's a society. And it's meant to be where people can discuss things in a friendly way and from time to time call each other out. So yeah, I guess I'm going to have to look at that first act guitar that I saw on Goodwill earlier. It needs a lot of work. I've got a lot of parts, as you can see. And it's got a humbucking pickup. So I gotta be me. Wait. Before you go, one more thing. I wasn't really clear in this, and I know it's been long, so I appreciate it if you've made it this far. But I do want to point out that there's a difference between preference and bias. I have a preference for that Seymour Duncan distortion pedal. And I have a preference for certain types of pickups in certain applications. I have a preference for certain types of sounds. And I have a preference for the electronics that allow me to record things relatively easily. A bias is something that's much more difficult to overcome. And it's the thing that kind of leads you to start arguments in online forums. So again, I appreciate the question. I appreciate the way the question was posed, and I appreciate the society that we're trying to build that allows those questions to float. So please, like, share, comment, whatever that other thing is that I forget half the time, and enjoy. And if you made it this far, here's your reward.